Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 7th of February 2025. First chart is the XJO. This is the parent index, the S&P ASX 200 index. Put some lines in to make the price action a bit more clear. Back here we saw a period where the market traded sideways in consolidation mode before breaking out. It was only a modest breakout. Price then moved sideways for a period, absorbing supply in response to the breakout. And here, price only edged higher. There was no significant breakout. And price came back. It was a mini shakeout here. Test for supply and push higher. And then price moved higher again. There was some supply drawn out on this bar, and price moved back in response. The market gathered itself up and pushed higher again, and supply was drawn out again across here. Price pulled back more deeply this time, but reversed almost immediately. And then the market tested for supply, absorbed supply, mini shakeout, and then pushed higher again. Last week, price moved to new highs, and this week, prices moved back through the range of the previous bar on an increase in volume, but it's recovered pretty much all of the lost ground to close up high in the range. This was another mini shakeout come test for supply. The response would generally be a secondary test for supply with a narrower spread, depending on whether trading conditions are favourable or not, or a push higher in response. So you'll be looking for either a secondary test for supply, generally on reduced volume, or a pushed higher in response, probably on about average volume. This is the mid-cap sector. The mid-cap sector is made up of the bottom 50 stocks in the ASX 100. If we look at similar charting to previously, here was that sideways range. Price pulled back and then accelerated higher here, went through a period of consolidation before there was a proper breakout there. The market moved up. Spent some time here absorbing supply before accelerating higher again. Then there was a period of consolidation again in response where the initial breakout was tested back here. Price moved higher again. Here's where the supply was drawn out on the parent index and price pulled back more deeply in response. Immediate reversal. And then price tested for supply, absorbed, and then mini shakeout and a push higher in response. That's nice. Volume was increased again this week, very similar to the XJO, the parent index. Price pulled back through the range of the previous bar before reversing and recovering most of the lost ground by week's end. You would expect a secondary test for supply with a narrower range and reduced volume, or an attempt to push higher in response. It really depends on trading conditions. These markets have to roll with the punches to some degree. If something's going on around the world that upsets the markets, they're rarely going to move higher in response. So they have to roll with the punches to some degree. And it depends on the trading conditions. This market looks like it wants to go higher, as does the parent index, but it won't necessarily just do it. Trading conditions have to be at least neutral or favourable for the market to be confident enough to bid prices higher. Otherwise, you'll get a test for supply or a modest pullback to some degree. This is the small ordinaries. The small ordinaries is the bottom 200 stocks in the ASX 300 index. We had a similar setup earlier where the market traded through a range. This market was acting a little weaker than the previous two during this period, and you can see these deeper pullbacks in response. And when it did break out, it broke out with much more vigour than the previous two charts. Price pushed up, There was some supply drawn out here when price pulled back in response. The market then moved higher again. This is where that supply was drawn out on the other two charts. And price pulled back more deeply in response before reversing. Similar setup to those other charts. Then price pushed higher. This week, similar again. Prices moved back through the range of the previous bar before recovering most of the lost ground on increase in volume. So this is buying support coming in all these markets, and the markets look well placed to make an attempt to push higher. You may get an initial test for supply no matter what, but if trading conditions are favourable, I expect these markets to make an attempt to push higher. It'll only be if there's some sort of issue early in the week, and you'll see the market then test for supply, at least earlier, which is effectively marking time, waiting for trading conditions to become more favourable so the market can attempt to break out. This is the ASX financial sector. Back down here, we had a period of consolidation and even a little shakeout here, followed by a couple of absorption bars. The market did break out here. Then there was a period of bullish absorption in response. The market then pushed above this and broke out. An absorption bar, continued push higher. Supply was drawn out here and the market came back, tested the breakout for strength. The market then responded higher, pushed up. This is where that period of supply was drawn out on the other charts. Price pulled back in response. You'll note that this market didn't pull back anywhere near as deeply as those other charts. The market then moved up, spent 3 weeks in consolidation before pushing higher in response. Last week's bar was quite narrow. Volume increased quite a bit. This was supply being drawn out, no doubt. But this week the market's pulled back and recovered quite nicely and closed back on its highs again. Volume was really quite high. Might actually be worth having a look at the daily chart on this, just looking inside of this week's bar, see where that volume's come from, see whether it was selling pressure or whether it was buying support. The last 5 bars start here with Monday's widespread down bar, where all the markets were responding to news that was released over the weekend. Immediately the market moved into consolidation and absorption mode, sideways, and then recovered all of the lost ground, or at least the majority of it. And then the market tested for supply, and when it did so, supply was found to be low, below average. So this is like a 4-bar reversal or 4-bar shakeout, and then a test for supply at the end. And this market was well placed to make an attempt to push higher if trading conditions are favourable. So back to the weekly chart, and this bar now makes more sense. We've looked inside it. It doesn't look as threatening as it may do from this view, the very high volume, and this market does look well placed to make an attempt to push higher. This is the metals and mining sector, and price has been moving lower back here, breaking down. This was an important level here where price broke down from and broke below this bar's low on this bar. So this was always going to be a significant level. Price has moved just above it this week. It did test for supply below the previous bar's close for a period before accelerating higher. You may find some work needs to be done around this level before there's any attempt to push higher. The next level above comes through here, and there's a broader level through there. So you're going to have an important level on this chart around 5,800, which, if price can move up to this level, perhaps spend some time consolidating and then breaking above it, that would be a significant move for this market. That's a little bit down the track. It's not going to do it quickly. I expect there might be some consolidation required around this level then a push up to the next level where there'll be some further consolidation before there's any serious attempt or sustainable attempt to break out. This is the ASX gold sector. And right back here, we had a period where the market set itself up. We spoke about it at the time. Price accelerated higher, and every time price accelerates higher, it moves sideways in response to absorb supply and remove it from the market, which then allows price to keep moving higher again. Price did pull back here, tested the breakout for strength. That strength was found, price pushed higher. Some supply was drawn out through this period, but price came back, tested for supply, and then accelerated higher again through here. Further supply was drawn out here and price pulled back in response. And since then, the market has consolidated and moved higher here. This week's bar has pretty high volume and it has closed slightly off its high. Perhaps we should look at the daily chart for this one as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was Monday's down bar, which was a serious down bar across most of the equities index, but in gold it was only a narrow spread down bar on reduced but still above average volume. So being so narrow, that would suggest that the buyers had moved in and bought that pullback, and that's why spread was narrow. Price broke out above that level on the next bar, albeit with a narrow spread. There was an increase in volume, so it was bought higher. Price moved higher again on the next bar. Quite high volume on that bar. And then price floated higher on reduced volume on the last bar. So a little bit of demand came out of the market here, and it really floated higher on reduced selling pressure. And then today, the market's pulled back with a reduced spread, volumes reduced to average. The market traded inside the previous bar's range all day as an inside bar. This is a test for supply. And the fact that volume reduced to average suggests that selling pressure isn't overwhelming. If the market's a bit awkward overnight, you might get a test for supply like this before the market moves higher. Otherwise, you would expect this market to probably reverse like that. Not break out, but just complete this as a down bar and an up bar in response. So that doesn't look anywhere near as dangerous. In fact, that looks quite good for an attempt to push higher when trading conditions are favourable. Back to the weekly chart. Here's the highs of the range. Supply was drawn out here. It's not really the highs of the range here. Here was where the highs of the range were, and it's where price broke down from on this bar. You can see the market pulled up to that level there. It absorbed supply. It tested for supply below the previous bar's close and then broke out above this level. So this is the key level here. In the short term, price is pushed above it today, and the close off the week's high is really just a test for supply. This market looks well placed to push higher. There may be an early test for supply on Monday or Tuesday next week, but the market does look well placed to make an attempt to continue higher when trading conditions are favourable. This is the energy sector. Here's the lows of the range, with a little shakeout at the bottom, which was obviously buying on this increased volume, because the next bar was up, the next two bars were up. So the market's done a fakie here, pulled below the support level, the previous support level here. The market's been bought, up bar in response to confirm, and then a secondary up bar. Here's the highs of that little mini range. Here's the highs of that bar there. You can see where the market is. It's made a half-hearted attempt to push higher here, but it wasn't strong enough. It's come back in response. Volume was a little higher than you might like today, but price did remain within the range of the previous bar. I would expect there's some further absorption required in here like this before there's any serious attempt to break above this 9,000 level. This is the healthcare sector, which has been having some trouble trying to break out. We've expected it for a while up here, and it keeps on stalling each time it gets up there. Last week price pushed up and it looked promising, and this week price has pulled back pretty seriously on an increase in volume. The mini lows are here, you've got intermediate lows there, and the lows of the range through here. So there's plenty of support below, but this was still an awkward down bar on high volume. The best you could expect is some sort of test for supply and response, at least early in the week. I doubt very much it's going to immediately reverse. That'd probably be quite promising, but I don't expect that's going to happen. It's less likely. Much more likely is a test for supply on Monday or Tuesday, and maybe some further absorption sideways, probably at this level or somewhere close to it. This is the industrial sector. Price did spend some time in consolidation mode here. There was a reluctance to move lower, which is often a significant thing to notice. If the market's got good volumes going through like this, but it's not moving lower, there must be buying taking place. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to see and understand, but often what doesn't happen is giving you the idea on what is actually happening. Anyway, the market did have a reluctance to move lower here, and in response, it's pushed higher because there was actually buying taking place. The market moved up to this level here, and there was test for supply, absorption bar, shakeout, and then breakout. And prices broke out, moved to a new level. You can see that it's moved to a new level, and then it's gone through this period of consolidation again. It's what these markets do. They really accelerate, and then they move sideways in consolidation mode, attempting to absorb the supply that's drawn out inevitably when price makes good gains. The market pushed higher here. There was some supply drawn out there. The market pulled back in response, effectively testing the breakout for strength. And then the market moved up. Some consolidation here before attempting to break out 3 weeks ago. Probably a bit of supply on this narrow spread up bar and a lack of demand, really. Look at the low volume on that. So there's a bit of a lack of demand and a bit of supply drawn out. And in response, the market's come back, probably with the help of Monday's down bar. It has closed well off its low on an increase in volume. So you would suggest that buying supports come in. And most importantly, the market continues to trade above this important level here, the highs of this little range. So it actually looks quite promising. Similar to some of them other markets, a test for supply early on Monday is probably a likely occurrence. And in response, if trading conditions are favourable, I expect there'll be an attempt to push higher. If trading conditions aren't favourable, I expect the market to go roughly sideways. And if there was real weakness in the market, I think there would be a reluctance to move lower. It would move lower, but it would do so reluctantly, sort of like it did back here. And many of those other markets would be similar. They would pull back. They have to. If the world markets are coming back with serious weakness, we're not going to stand up there and buy all the supply that's drawn out and try to hold the market up. They'll go with the weakness and pull back. They'll either pull back really, really deeply and shake out, or there'll be a reluctance to move lower. And you'll see buying support drawn out as it moves lower. This is the consumer staples. We had the lows of the range coming through there. Shakeout on these two bars, 2-bar shakeout there. Price responded higher, showing you that buying support came in. Here's the highs of the range. Here's the mini lows of the range. You've really got the lows of the range coming through here now. You've got a little shelf that's formed in here. The market's been respecting that and trading within it for some time. Did look like the market might attempt to break out last week, but because Monday's weakness came in, the market's pulled back in response. The close off the week's lows shows you that there was some buying support present. It may not have been as strong in this market as some of the others, but there was some buying support present on an increase in volume. So it certainly doesn't look like there's severe weakness here, but it's not, this market's not as strong as some of the others. This is the consumer discretionary sector. This market's certainly acting a bit stronger than the last one. You've had a breakout after a period of consolidation through here. This was absorption at this point here. And the market pulled back, mini shakeout, and then a push higher. Some weakness emerged through here, but you can see there was a reluctance to move lower. The market did move lower, but it was reluctant to do so. It didn't move lower with an ease of movement. It reluctantly moved lower. And you can see that good volume was going through, but the market wasn't really stretching lower. If this was all selling pressure and there was no buyers in the market, it would have done this with good wide spreads to the downside. But that didn't happen. The market had all these overlapping bars where there was a reluctance to move lower. And then as soon as the market became favourable again, price moved higher with good spreads and a good push higher, little test for supply and absorption here, secondary push higher up to here, and then there was some consolidation in response through there. The market's accelerated higher. Looked pretty good last week on modestly above average volume. And this week was a test for supply. It closed well off its low and volume was relatively low. So selling pressure was low. As the market pulled back, it didn't draw out much supply. Spread was quite narrow compared to the previous bar, so it was relatively shallow, and prices remained comfortably above this high. So this market does look well placed to continue. There may be a secondary test for supply just early in the week, just to suss out how the overseas markets are going to trade. And if trading conditions are favourable, I expect this market will attempt to move higher as well and above this bar's high. This is the ASX property sector. The highs of the range really come through there. There was supply drawn out on some of these bars here. Lack of demand. Price pulled back. There was an attempt to move back up to this level again, but weakness was drawn out and price pulled back more deeply. There was some consolidation through here, and then prices pushed up to the highs of this range here. Tested for supply, secondary test for supply. This market looks well placed to push higher. It's just waiting for the right trading conditions to emerge. Now, they may take a little bit longer, yeah, we'll have to see. But if you continue getting testing for supply like this with narrowing spreads and reducing volume, this market's coiling itself up, just looking for the right opportunity to move higher when trading conditions allow. And that's what this market's looking like it's doing. It's just waiting for things to be right. Just back to the parent index quickly. After all of that, you've had the market push higher from here after a little bit of absorption went on. Market stretched higher over 2 bars. It did pull back in response to the weakness on Monday this week, but that was used to shake the market out to some degree and trade actually below the previous bar's low briefly. Volume was increased, but it really wasn't that excessive considering the market pulled back very deeply on Monday. Then there was a couple of days of consolidation before the market recovered and then tested for supply today. I think your most likely opportunity is for the market to test for supply early next week, and then it will respond depending on the trading conditions. I think this market wants to go higher, would like to go higher. It just needs for trading conditions to be favourable. And if the market doesn't have favourable trading conditions, I think there'll be a reluctance to move lower. It will move lower, but it'll do it reluctantly. It'll come back as little as possible. Either that or they'll absolutely smash it lower. Highly unlikely they'll do something nice in the middle. It'll either be blood on the streets pullback or it'll be a reluctance to move lower. Okay, thanks for your time. Nice to be back doing a live version of the ASX charts. Haven't done that for a while. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.